What's up, guys? We're going to be doing a viewer castle episode, but before we start off, I put in one of these chickens, and I tested him out already, but I want to just show you guys. He's actually pretty cool. He's not a terrible unit. He actually might be worth the cost for an 8-point unit. He seems pretty good. He seems better than the Vamp. He seems even better than IMAX, I would say. But I do need to do a little bit more testing. Obviously, I only ran through it once. I need to test him for certain, like, how tanky he is in certain situations and stuff like that. But he seems alright. He seems kind of like a spider in some ways, because he has a pounce. It's very similar to a spider. But then he also does things like whirlwind, and he spawns chickens. The spawn chickens is probably the weakest of his abilities. The whirlwind can do decent damage, and then his auto attacks are reasonable at around 600. For a 5-point unit, I think his hit points alone are high enough to make him at least usable in some situations. So I want to start off with a volley to see how much it damages him, right? Because the basic requirement in using any minion is that it has to survive a volley or some basic auto area of effect attack, or else it's just kind of useless. So we're just going to drop a volley on him and see how much it really takes him down. And like you can see, it doesn't take him down hardly at all. I need to deal with this Doctor Skull that's going to be coming around here, though. I don't want to get overwhelmed by skeletons. And as you can see, he just kind of did his pounce attack. He's at around half life right now. So I mean, he isn't super tanky, but he also did just he tanked a volley already. And then I just crit him, which is kind of unfortunate because I wanted to show off his abilities more. Let me restart. I should have put him at the start of my castle without anything else around him. But he's not really a bad unit. I would say he's going to be somewhat useful in certain situations. You probably won't be able to like spam him throughout your castle, like he's not that OP. There's his little pounce that he does. There's his whirlwind. If you're standing around him when he's doing that, you'll take 800 damage. I don't know if you take 800 damage again and again and again. That I haven't figured out yet. And there's his spawn chicken thing. The chickens are level 32, even though I don't think mine are leveled up to 32. So they basically are based on his level, I believe, not the level of your chickens themselves. But yeah, it's the weakest of his abilities. It might only happen when he's damaged, I'm not sure. Because I've only seen that ability proc when he's damaged, but I've only ran it a couple of times, so maybe some of the viewer castles will have chickens in them. Alright, so I'm kind of just wanting to test out his abilities. So I'm trying to kill off these chickens without killing him off. Alright, so his auto attacks are around 500 to 600. It looks like I don't think that was his pounce, so he might just like push you away from him when you get close. He seems to have quite a few abilities for an elite. And when you're close to him, well, I didn't really... it's so hard to see what's actually damaging me with these chickens around. And he's probably going to kill himself on just my reflect eventually. It looks like he's only doing 300 on that whirlwind, but I know I got hit by with 800 at first, so I'm wondering if it's maybe when he starts doing it. I don't know, it's kind of difficult to see. I'll do some more testing, but I think it's a useful unit in some ways. Simply because it's only 8 points. You can throw it in with other units, and you know, it'll be a threat that has to be there. It's good space control. He's pretty big with that whirlwind and the pounce. He does some different types of space control that can be used similarly to how my entire castle is built. So I just wanted to start off with that. And then we'll jump into viewer castles. The first one is going to be herrDamit. Right here. So he is a castle level 17, so we'll jump into it on my knight. I didn't think it was really worth doing a full video just on the chicken elite, but I am pretty glad that we got a chicken elite. That's pretty awesome. I didn't think he was going to be at all useful when I first heard about it. I thought it was just going to be another trash elite. Kind of like a joke, you know, kind of like chicken is in and of itself. But he seems okay. I'm going to take a look a little bit more after I get done with this video and see if I can incorporate him in my castle somewhere. At least one of them to start off, and then I'll watch some replays to see how he does. I might run a couple other people's castles as well that I know are active and see if they have one in their castle, so I can test out his abilities a little bit more. You know, in like a good situation where someone else is using him. So these derps, I just tried to pull them back a room so that this Dr. Skull is going to be less effective. And I'm going to get right up next to him and just go for the kill. So I did end up making it that time. A lot of the times these Defendatrons, as you guys know, give me trouble because I'm not used to I'm not used to AoE Defendatrons. Like, no one uses them. So I tend to ignore them, and then they end up screwing me over. But that time it wasn't too bad. Nonetheless, I do like your room here. I like how you comboed that, because they kind of came around the side, and by the time I knew what was happening, like I saw the Dr. Skull up here, but it didn't occur to me that derps were going to be walking around. And with this room, I guess there is certain things that could happen. I'll explain a few things that might happen. Because you have them pulling through the room like this, what I could have done is I could have aggroed this group and then went up here, and as long as the derps died, like somewhere back in this area, I'm pretty sure the Dr. Skull would have just followed me over here instead of going over and resurrecting them. So that's one thing that might happen. But someone has to think about that and be like, hey, I just pulled a group from this area, there's not going to be another group waiting for me. I'll have some room to fight. Because a lot of people won't push into an unexplored area of a castle. Because they are afraid of aggroing another group. Which is generally the smart thing to do. You have to think about it and say, hey, I just pulled a group from there, there can't be another group there. So, nonetheless, I like the room. This group's fine. This corridor is a pretty good one for IMAXs, or not IMAXs, Stairmasters on teleport. Alright, I'm gonna use a potion. Alright, going after the Stairmaster first, because that's the majority of the damage. Although, the Cyclops and the Battering Ram can do decent damage. Cyclops is only level 16, so he's 3 levels behind me, same as a lot of the stuff, because you're at an odd level, level 17, so some stuff will be 16, some stuff will be 18. So a little weaker than I am, so that's why it might look like I'm doing a little bit better than I should be. This is a pretty good one. I like the jelly wall here. I think like an archer won't have as much trouble if they have a roll, because they can just kind of roll back through it, or bear traps in front of them if their reaction time is pretty good. But a knight can't really get away in time, I don't think. That being said, the stun on Cyclops isn't really enough to combo with Zeke's anymore. Like, I'm still trying to use it as well, but it's just not quite enough to actually get their shots off. You can usually get out of the way, which is a little unfortunate. There's nothing that can really force Zeke to make their shots. I guess Scorpios and Hungerbots on Pinstrike, if that hits, it's super slow now, so it's very unlikely. But if it does hit, I think it might have enough time to at least hit one shot. And then I believe Spider's knockdown might work as well. But the stun on Cyclops just isn't quite enough at this point. As you can see, like, I got hit by both of them there, and I was just able to walk out of the way, because it's just not long enough. At level 28, I think you can maybe hit the first bolt, but I'm not even sure of that anymore. This is a good boss room, though. I mean, if the Cyclops' stun was long enough, I would have probably died there. With 2 Zekes both trying to shoot me, most likely I would have died. But yeah, your castle was pretty good. I don't think there was really anything that I had negative to say about it. It was all pretty good. Like, the problem is you do use a lot of the Cyclops plus Zeke combos, or at least 2 or 3 of them that I remember, 2 of them. And it's just, it doesn't work as good as it used to. But then again, there's nothing that really works as good as it used to. So I mean, it's not necessarily bad, it's just the fact of the matter is, like, Zeke's and Smelly Archers are pretty easy to kill by themselves when they're not, like, defended with a Defendatron or something. So it makes people be able to get through your castle a little bit quicker than they necessarily should because of that, because they're low hit point units. But we'll jump into number 2 in just a second. Alright, next up we have the Mighty Knight. Castle level's at 27, so I'll jump into it on my Archer. Let's see what he's got. You can see I have no life force because I just spent all of it upgrading that chicken elite. Gets pretty expensive towards the end. I think like 120,000 for the last upgrade. Alright, so I double pulled. There was a IMAX on the first part of the pull, so if you were to just pull the first part, you would fight the IMAX in this room, or have to pull back into this, which just doesn't have really all that much room to dodge around in. So I think it's a pretty good place for an IMAX. Maybe not the best because you are able to kite backwards quite a bit. Like if you were to hit the end of your castle, it would be good. But the fact, like, you can see how he shoots out, and you can just kind of kite backwards and just stutter step as you're going, and take no damage that way. And since there's no traps back here, it's a little bit easy for me to just kind of stutter step backwards. I don't have to really worry about taking any extra damage. So that's just something to note. Might be better at some other point in your castle than the first room, but it's not terrible. Alright. Explodifier. Dr. Skull. Okay, so I gotta kill off Dr. Skull, obviously. He's probably on Resurrect, if I had to guess. Yep. Alright, so this can combo well, but I don't know about the room that it's in right now. Like, it isn't the best room for it. You need a lot of space so that, like, I don't know. I'm not the best at using these explodifiers for Dr. Skull pulls because I haven't really done it yet. But I can see what you're trying to do, and the group itself works well. I'm just not sure about the placement because I'm able to get up on the Dr. Skull before the explodifier really starts pumping out bomblets. A lot of the times people do like a double pull, and the first pull is explodifiers and the second pull is the Dr. Skull. If you notice that, like if you pull both of the groups at the same time, it's devastating. But if you notice it and pull the explodifiers back a little bit, it's almost worthless. At least the first part of the group is. But I do really like my Dr. Skulls to have Defendatrons on them. I think it makes it a lot more difficult because you have to try to maneuver, and you can't really headshot because there's a ton of skeletons in the way. So you have to just auto attack, and if someone doesn't have the bow like I do where it goes through the enemy, which in my opinion is the best bow, but if they have one of them that doesn't pierce, it makes it even more difficult because they're constantly killing skeletons rather than the Defendatron or rather than the Dr. Skull. It makes it really difficult because you can't really just stand there and tank the skeletons at this level. They do quite a bit of damage. So that's why I like Defendatrons. And in that case, you'd probably have to replace, or you'd have to like switch it out so that you have a pull in front, which is your trash mobs or explodifiers, and then have your Dr. Skull Defendatron, and then maybe a couple other trash mobs with him as well. Alright. I did see someone today use these Smelly Warriors instead of heavy-handed or whatever. It was okay, but it doesn't quite do as much damage. These are only level 22, so you obviously need to upgrade these for them to be a little bit more effective. I believe it was something around 300 to 500 damage instead of the 1000 for heavy-handed. Personally, I still like heavy-handed, but I can see merit in using the one that has the self-shielded bubble or whatever, because you can't really stand next to it as an archer for too long. So they're a little bit more annoying to kill, rather than a higher danger of space control, I guess, is what the trade-off is. Alright, I like how you have this Snotter. This was actually a double pull that I didn't even notice. I was just going to comment on this, but I could have easily pulled this as a double pull. That was a really good one. I didn't notice that Snotter at all. But what I was going to say is I like that your Snotter was blocking off the headshot from the Zeke. It did pretty well there. Now that I know that it was a double pull, I can probably get up here and hit an angle like this, but I think that still hits the Snotter. Yeah, that's a good angle to block off like that. I like this room quite a bit, actually. Alright. Teleport. Stairmasters. Just kite backwards quite a bit, and I don't know where that one went at all. Okay, it went behind me. I didn't know they could teleport that far. That's a ridiculously far teleport. Alright. Yeah, I have never been able to use vamps all that effectively. I tried using a bunch of them in the boss room and just kind of DPS someone down, but they still just die way too quickly in my opinion. They're kind of one of those units that, like I said in the beginning of the video, if it doesn't survive a volley, it's generally not worth it. Alright, so you have this weird flanking puppeteer, and then what else is coming? Okay, it's a Dr. Skull. Actually, I mean, if this was before the Dr. Skull change, where basically Dr. Skull was changed so that he has to make eye contact, the same as puppeteers. They have to make contact with the hero before they start doing their thing. But before, if you were able to like aggro something from behind, he would come around and he would start resurrecting everything in his path all the way up to you. And I think that would be really cool if that was kind of reverted a little bit. It might be overpowered though, so I don't know. It would be really good if it was reverted. Like people would use it all the time. It was a good tactic back then. But now, since he has to make eye contact with you, it's probably not as good. I still kind of like it, because you could easily think that it was a fake pull if you didn't notice it like I did, and go into the boss room and then you have to deal with a Dr. Skull as well, raising stuff up. Which I'm guessing is what you were going for. Alright. And then a Count Snottingham to finish everything off, which is good. Pretty good castle. We will jump into number 3 in just a second. Alright, and lastly we have Daxxramas. Castle level is a 32. So we'll jump into it. This is an interesting group. I don't really know the point of the chickens. I'm gonna see if maybe it was if there's a Dr. Skull pull next or something. That's what I have to assume, but I don't really see it. I don't know, obviously the chickens here aren't really gonna do much. It's just kind of 4 or 3 wasted points, however many chickens were there. Which you could add in, you know, another 3-point support or like a dampener or something like that. Even a smelly warrior or something. There's the Dr. Skull, so it all makes kind of a lot more sense when that happens. But a lot of the time, since the pull is so far away, you'll notice he isn't really even getting back to that point where I killed the skeletons at. Which still kind of makes it a lot less good that you have 4 chickens there, because they're not really ever going to make it down to this point where they can start resurrecting this stuff. Maybe if you pulled it through the wall somehow and like got it over to somewhere in here where the pull started, someone might back up to this point, and then the Dr. Skull comes around and he's close enough to start resurrecting it. Alright, teleportation, Stairmasters. Not terribly difficult for archers to deal with, but they can be. Because if they start hitting you and they just keep dodging, like they do quite a bit of damage, as you can see. They took me down pretty low, so they can get out of hand pretty quickly. And as long as the room is open enough where they have some room to teleport, they're never really a bad choice, I would say. Okay, here's one of the chickens, which is great, because I wanted to see how it worked in a situation like this, specifically. So, he doesn't seem to leap quite as far as the spider. However, he does stay up longer. He was the last thing alive with this entire group, which makes him tanky enough to be useful. And he's a threat by himself. Like, I'm wondering if maybe this was a trap instead of being acid. If this was like a trap that like a rotating fire trap or a ballista trap or something, then I would have to be trying to kite away from both of these guys and that. And I think that could add up to some pretty good sustained damage. Like, I think he's a pretty good space control unit. That's what he seems like to me. Similar to how the spider is, or a Cyclops on charge, or battering ram, or anything that kind of charges toward the hero, or throws something towards the hero, or anything like that. He's very similar to the spider. That's the only thing that I don't really like. His charge doesn't, like, I guess, pounce or whatever, doesn't seem to do much different, I would say. Alright, so we have the Puppeteer on Enrage. That's something I'll have to keep in mind. Alright, so we have Mr. Boom Boom. That's fine. Generally, he's also been used with, what do you call him? Dr. Skulls. He can be a little bit dangerous by himself, but as soon as you get him under control, like, when he first spawns, however many he spawns, 2 or 3 bomblets, that's the worst point. Once you get him where he's only spawning 1 and he's just sitting here like I have him now, he can't really ever do enough damage to... He can't really do any damage to you, really. But when he first spawns 2 or 3, if you don't get it under control quickly, it can like kind of overwhelm you, and then you can never really catch up, and you're constantly taking 300 damage, 300 damage, 300 damage from their bomblets before they die. Usually they won't explode next to you. Sometimes you'll get lucky from that, but pretty much any damage that he does is good, because he's a good time waster as well. So I have to imagine there's going to be a Dr. Skull at the end of this somewhere. Or he's right in there. Never mind, he's right in there. Okay. So I mean, this is an obvious one, because there's so many chickens. I'm also wondering, with the Chicken Elite, if it's completely random, his abilities, or if there's some sort of sequence to them. Because with him spawning chickens, he's a pretty good unit for 8, and he can spawn chickens as well, so you could probably use that in conjunction with a Dr. Skull, possibly. That would be 18 points, though, so it might have to be a boss room thing. Or, you know, free creation mode once it comes out. I'm just wondering how that might work. So I'm trying to keep the Dr. Skull from resurrecting the chickens down in here, and that seemed to work out for me. If you notice that, that's going to be the obvious response from most people, is to just pull the chickens back a little bit farther, and then try to keep the Dr. Skull up where he can't get within range of them. So if you could hide the Dr. Skull a little bit more, it might be better. Although it's pretty obvious once you see more than like 2 chickens in a group that that's probably the case. Because generally you're not going to need more than 2. The only time you really need 2 is when you're linking something for a longer pull. Alright. Stairmaster over here somewhere. Let's see. Okay, he's right up in here. There's a Mittens as well. Mittens, I've always kind of talked about him as not really being my favorite unit. I think he needs to be reworked where he's like the Howl and also being like kind of a damage dealer of some kind. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they could do with him, but he's just kind of weak. He's got low hit points. I guess he deals 400 damage, which is pretty good. I mean, he did eat up my health quite a bit. Maybe his damage buff since the last patch, that, you know, when they reworked a lot of the damage, maybe he got a big enough damage buff to make him worth it. But I feel like he should have insane attack speed, like crazy fast. I think that's something that could be kind of cool. Or yeah, he does the Howl, and then the Howl like works even more on him or something. I don't know. Or the Howl brings about some wolf dogs that help. I don't really know what they could do for it, but I think he's just a little bit too weak to really only be based around increasing attack speed for 10 points. It seems a little bit too high. I've seen some interesting things with him in the boss room, but it's really only revolved around him being 100%, you know, giving something attack speed that's near him. Because with bad dogs, you can kind of kite them away and make it so that they don't get in a rage. Puppeteers don't always work, like their AI is kind of funky. So it's kind of guaranteed attack speed buff. But I've never seen anyone use him as just like a unit overall. He's just too weak. Alright. So you use a lot of acid traps. They're not really my favorites because they're pretty easy to get out of. It hardly ever debuffs the hero. They're just too easy to see and get out of. lots of chickens again, so I'm guessing Dr. Skullpole, so I'm going to kind of advance to see if he's linked to this group or if he's linked to the next group. It looks like the next group, so I can go back. And I did get debuffed by that acid right there, because I had to roll over it. But even the debuff, I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world. It's worse when you're fighting a huge unit that you really want a headshot to do a ton of damage to, because it seems to scale back the headshot damage quite a bit. Like if you're dealing with a big boss or something, that's a little bit annoying. So there is another Dr. Skull here in the boss room. So I'm just going to pull these back one room back. This is another obvious one. You could see him as well if you looked all the way into the top corner of my screen. But yeah, I just pulled them back one extra room, and it'll make this next fight a lot easier. Alright, and then I can also initiate on the Defendatron. So I can chunk that down to like half. Oh, I actually died because of the Zeke. I wasn't paying attention. Zeke can surprise you like that. If you get hit by 1 or 2 bolts, they can kill you pretty quickly. And I was concentrating on killing the Dr. Skull, so I mean that was good. I mean the boss room isn't bad by itself, but there might be a few too many focused groups on like giving units to the Dr. Skull, because he's kind of fine by himself. You can just throw on a Defendatron or something. And I would almost say that instead of a dampener, maybe maybe a puppeteer is better, just because it gives 3 extra units that can be resurrected. The dampener is not bad because you can't roll, so a lot of people will like wait till the last second. They'll be like attacking and then wait for the Zeke to just get ready to almost fire, and then they want to roll out of the way, and then the bubble can happen. And it kind of combos well because generally they'll just spam right click. They won't just walk out of the way where they could have, but you know, they think that the roll's going to go through, and then they panic and they just constantly spam roll and can't do anything. I've had that happen to me a couple of times. But yeah, your castle was pretty good. I would say the only thing that I'd be a little worried about is using too many trash mob groups by themselves. Like you could even put, instead of having a bunch of snotters there, something that might be a little bit more useful. I don't know what you could throw in there, but I mean you could put in 2 chicken elites, and maybe he summons that many chickens anyway. You know, it would be a little bit more threatening to the hero, but also give some bodies if it works out, because it's too easy for someone to just backtrack 1 room, and then it renders that entire group kind of useless because they wouldn't really do any damage. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So we will end the video here. As always, if you guys enjoyed, please subscribe. And if you want to be a part of Eurocasts, you can email me at frenzycastleruns@hotmail.com. Another beta key giveaway this Friday, so go check out that video. It's like beta giveaway 3 or something. Just comment on that video if you want to be a part of it. And if you have friends that want to get into the game, let them know as well. But that is pretty much it, so thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.